Action.
We're live on Facebook.
Good.
Okay.
Anybody joined?
Not yet, but they will. Let's see. On YouTube.
I don't see anybody.
Okay.
2 insights. Is that what you read?
Yeah.
4. Okay. How do I see them? The people who are just joined. How do you see them? Oh, you don't know. Okay. All right.
Five people.
Get closer to it.
Hold on a second. That works.
Get closer. You might want to switch this a little bit to the screen towards you a little bit. It's more towards me. Yeah, a little more towards you. Okay, that's good.
Okay. How are you guys doing? Hope you guys are well. Let's see who is watching. Got 2 likes here. How you guys doing? Put a comment, put a question. You are live. I got 7 people.
Hello, Troy Robinson. How are you doing, Mr. Troy Robinson? I hope you're doing well. Let's see. Move that mouse so I can toggle down. How do you see the others? There's only one comment.
You can see who puts comments, but you can't see who's watching.
Okay. We're waiting for some comments or questions.
Okay, Chad is there. Scroll down. You got something there? So you can scroll down.
Okay, scroll
down. This mouse. Hi, Wally. When will you send your new book?
Chad, it's very difficult to decide when to put out the new book, and it's going to be for free. It's just, I'm kind of working on it 18 hours a day, and so many light bulbs are going on. It's just incredible. I don't even know how to start. The idea is the biblical prophecies.
You have to speak a little more to the mic.
The problem that I'm sure you and others find out is as if you study, let's say, opinions and views on biblical prophecies. Prophecy is like a jigsaw puzzle. You can't solve it if I give you 3 pieces of the jigsaw puzzle. You can imagine a jigsaw puzzle. It could be a picture of a castle, and around it is sky and clouds. And I give you 3 pieces of the clouds or the sky. They're all blue or white. And you got to have pieces that are foundational. You can't solve it with 3, 4 pieces, even 10 pieces. It could be a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle. And the problem I see with all the analysis on biblical prophecy, and I've read tons of books, and I've seen so many, is that they hone in on a favorite part of the Bible. You could have a discussion on Ezekiel 38, and they will sit there and they will argue ad nauseum, city of unwalled cities, and therefore it's this and that. And unless you have the full pieces, and it doesn't have to be the full pieces, but enough pieces where you can draw a picture of the castle. And you see, oh, that looks like a castle. And you see, I'm solving the jigsaw puzzle. But the problem with a lot of folks is that they don't go to the foundation. I'll give you an example. The foundation of end times is not Ezekiel 38. The foundation to all end times starts from the beginning in the oldest prophecy, and that is Numbers 24. Now, I wrote something today in which it generates the question of what we're dealing with here. And I'll read it to you. Okay, I started with the tongues from a wide gate are always rattling prophecy, 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 but only when it is unfulfilled. Yet when it is being fulfilled, the cowards swallow their tongues. Remember the former things of old, for I am God and there is no other. I am God and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. Let's start from the end of the story, then go to the beginning. There are no watchmen at the walls interpreting. Quote, the look on their faces testifies against them. They parade their sin like Sodom does, and they do not even try to hide it. Woe to them, they have brought destruction upon themselves. Isaiah 3:9. The prophecy seems to sound the alarm that a gay parade is at the city gates. But no watchman is sounding any alarm. The false prophets who cried prophecy, 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 swallowed their tongues. God does not approve of this gay parade and says, they have brought destruction upon themselves. But no one sounds the alarm, for they fear and love the Colosseum. Isaiah was not referring to a gay parade during his time, for even in the New Testament, two witnesses are martyred on the streets of Jerusalem, with John labeling Jerusalem as Sodom and Egypt. Their dead bodies will lie in the main street of the great city, which figuratively is called Sodom and Egypt, where also their Lord was crucified. Where their Lord was crucified leaves no room for any other interpretation. This is Jerusalem, the mother of Christendom, turned Sodom and pagan. And like ancient Sodom and Gomorrah, God, in the most ancient of prophecies, tells his people that the Messiah will come to destroy the city. Quote, one from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the remnant of the city. Numbers 24:19. That is the oldest prophecy and the foundation for all end time prophecies. Yet you don't see it much discussed. In the oldest prophecy, this one from Jacob, the star, annihilates and exterminates the remnant of the city. Which city is this city? What happened to the ones who were there prior to this destruction? Let's solve the riddle, shall we? First of all, this destruction is not only this one city. Quote, I begin to work a disaster at the city that is called by my name. And shall you go unpunished? You shall not go unpunished, for I am summoning a sword against all the inhabitants of the earth, declares the Lord of hosts. Jeremiah 25:29. Thus the Lord, the God of Israel, said to me, take from my hand this cup of the wine of wrath, and make all the nations to whom I send you drink it, Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, its kings and officials, to make them a desolation and a waste. Jeremiah 25:15 and 18. God here summons a sword, not just against Jerusalem, city called by my name, but against all the cities and inhabitants of the earth. This Babylon is a conglomerate that encompasses the earth. Quote, and another angel followed, saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. Apocalypse 14:8. It was not only the city, all nations drank this wine that caused fornication. Therefore, the city drank the wine of the wrath, because they parade their sin like Sodom does, and they do not even try to hide it. Woe to them, they have brought destruction upon themselves. This city represents three divisions. You don't see that analyzed in these discussions on Bible prophecy. Quote, now the great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon was remembered before God to give her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Revelation 16:18-19. The cities of the nations fell. This is not the destruction of one single city, but all cities. And then this harlot, the great city, is destroyed. This sounds like the most major wrath in human history since the flood. But there is only one wrath remaining in the Bible: Judgment Day. Quote, but because of your stubbornness and your unrepentant heart, you are storing up wrath against yourself for the day of God's wrath, when his righteous judgment will be revealed. Romans 2:5. Because his judgments are true and righteous, for he has judged the great harlot who was corrupting the earth with her immorality, and he has avenged the blood of his bond servants on her. Revelation 19:2. This is Judgment Day. There is much in between. Paul was not simply giving instruction on moral living, but he was warning that this specific wrath will come. Quote, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. Romans 1:19. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven is Judgment Day. He annihilated mankind the first time with a flood, and the second time will be with fire, because that was the punishment of Sodom. Peter describes it as such, quote, but the day of the Lord will come like a thief, in which the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the elements will be destroyed with intense heat, and the earth and its works will be burned up. 2 Peter 3:10. Welcome to God's global warming and forget Al Gore's. This is not only the earth burned with intense heat, but also the cosmos. Second Peter confirms, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be destroyed by burning, and the elements will melt with intense heat. Second Peter 3:12. Such a wrath has not happened in the history of Christendom. Therefore, Paul is not simply giving instruction on moral law, but like all prophets before him, he is foretelling the reason God judges the earth. Quote, therefore, God gave them up in the lust of their hearts to impurity, to the dishonoring of their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie. For this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions, for their women exchange natural relations for those that are contrary to nature, and their men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty for their error. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven, is without question judgment day. And here it describes the moral fall of man. Christ alluded to this when he visited Abraham to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. Quote, then the Lord, that is Christ, rained on Sodom and Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of in heaven, the Father, that is. Genesis 19:24. No question, it was Christ himself, was on earth judging Sodom. Lot's wife, symbolic of the fallen church, turned her head towards Sodom and perished. Lot, symbolic of the faithful church, did not turn his head towards Sodom and lived. Christ said when asked about his second coming to remember Lot's wife, that is, never to look backwards towards Sodom, for it is the sign of his soon coming to pour the wrath. But for God did not appoint us to suffer wrath. 1 Thessalonians 5:9. However, God instructed how to avoid it. Now we can unlock the oldest prophecy, this one from Jacob, the star annihilates and exterminates the remnant in the city. What happened to the ones who were there prior? Just as Christians who fled Jerusalem when God judged her for rejecting Christ, they fled the city, and so shall the wise virgins. Quote, and I heard another voice from heaven saying, come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that ye receive not of her plagues. Revelation 18:4. This plagues, plural, are many pandemics. Today we have entered the era of pandemics, and many wise folks left cities. Come out of her and receive not of her plagues is no allegoric instruction, but a literal commandment to flee cities for two reasons. One, that ye not partake of her sins. Two, receive not of her plagues. This last Exodus is a physical and arduous endeavor where Christ also laments, quote, and alas, for those who are with child and for those who give suck in those days, Matthew Matthew 24:19. This is no instant pain reliever labeled the rapture, but is an arduous journey. Even Christ said that before he comes. And when you see the abomination of desolation, to flee Judea and Jerusalem, quote, but when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then recognize that her desolation is near. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let those who are inside the city depart, and let not those who are out in the country enter it, because these are days of vengeance, so that all things which are written will be fulfilled. Luke 21:20-22. Again, this can never be the historic event when Titus destroyed Jerusalem, especially when Christ says, these are the days of vengeance, so that all things which are written will be fulfilled. All things means all things regarding the end of the age. Therefore, this can never be the same event as when Titus destroyed the temple, or that such destruction hits only Judea. Notice even further a crucial instruction. Let those who are inside the city depart means what it says, to flee as Lot fled out of Sodom. And also another very crucial instruction, let those who are out in the country don't enter it. Means what it means, to live out in the country and never enter the city. Therefore, it is wise to be out in the country and start homesteading prior to when God pours the 7 vials of his wrath, especially since the destruction is not strictly Jerusalem, since Mystery Babylon encompasses much more. Quote, nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. Jeremiah 51:7. This wrath is not poured only on the homosexuals. Quote, who knowing the righteous judgment of God, that those who practice such things, homosexuality, are deserving of death, not only do the same, but also approve of those who practice them. Romans 1:32. But also approve of those who practice them is supporting homosexuality. This deserving of death is not to be carried out by anyone except God, who pours out his wrath from heaven. Will the 2 witnesses, when they come, perhaps look like the modern priest, plump and well-fed, preaching about inclusiveness and acceptance of alternative lifestyle? God forbid. And so we start first in the foundation of prophecy, and that is Numbers 24. And there's Christ himself destroying the remnant in the city. What happened to the others? They fled. And so the fleeing is throughout the scripture. You find, the woman, she fled to the wilderness, and there she was fed. And so there is much more than just studying Ezekiel 38, Psalm 83, arguing over rapture issues, arguing over, this is the ridiculousness of what I see in America, of how they study biblical prophecies. It's a lot more. And so I'm about 326 pages into this document. And it really starts from the beginning to the end. And that's why it's crucial. It says, God declares the end from the beginning. So when we look at prophecy, we got to look at it from the perspective, it's speaking towards the end times. But he's expressing it from the beginning. In other words, you have to also take the issue of Solomon. And Solomon basically said that history repeats. And we have to take those 2 principles. Let me read it as I wrote it. Okay. So when it says declaring the end from the beginning, pay close attention. says also, remember the former things. That is, what is historic is to be remembered. Yet prophecy is declaring then from the beginning. In essence, what God is saying is this: prophecy should be viewed as a declaration of the end of the age, declared from the beginning. This is crucial, since the gravest error when one reads common interpretations is that they view a type of fulfillment and then they conclude that the prophecy was completely fulfilled. Another crucial rule is this, quote, what has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done, and there is nothing new under the sun. In plainer language, history repeats itself. But not only that, this includes all the judgments, so that if God pours fire on Sodom, he pours fire on Sodom of the ends of days. This is why, when good scholars analyze prophecy, they borrow examples from history beginning in Genesis, Judges, Wisdom, Numbers. So all the historic events in the Bible repeat in a way. And so when we see prophecy, we find a lot of things that are a type of fulfillment. And, maybe I can give you an example. Okay, if somebody, let's say, reads Isaiah 45 regarding Cyrus. Now, Bible prophecy students, don't go to Isaiah 45 and try to decide what happens in the ends of days, because they think Isaiah 45 was fulfilled. So we don't need to visit that. We just need to visit Ezekiel 38. That's the problem. So then they conclude that that prophecy was fulfilled when Cyrus the Persian allowed the Hebrews to rebuild their temple. Yet when one carefully reads the prophecy, it is regarding the end. The prophecy was really speaking on Christ, with Cyrus simply being a type. Quote, I have raised him up to justice, and I will direct all his ways. He shall build my city and go and let go my captives, not for ransom, nor for presents, says the Lord, the God of hosts. Thus says the Lord, the labor of Egypt and the merchandise of Ethiopia and of Sabians, Arabs, men of stature, shall come over to you and shall be yours. They shall walk after you. They shall go bound with manacles, and they shall worship you and shall make supplications to you, saying, only in you is God, and there is no God besides you. Verily, thou art a hidden God, the God of Israel, the Savior. When did you ever read Isaiah 45 and think this is speaking of ancient Cyrus? No, it's speaking of Christ. And boy, to explain why Christ is called Cyrus, pages. And so this is the problem. And we need to delve deeper into all these prophecies. This means who comes to Christ are the Sabians, the Arabs, the Ethiopians, Cush, Sudan. All these people will come in manacles and they will worship Christ. And they finally understand that the Son of God is God. They finally understand the Trinity. They finally understand and comprehend that Jesus was the Son of God. He was God. That's why it says, only God is in you, and there is no God besides you. Verily, thou art the hidden God. My gosh, where do I start? And it's just, that's all I do these days. And so when do I finish? Is when the door closes. The door is still open, and I get up in the morning, and I get up at 3 a.m., and it's like a floodgate, and I'm writing it all down, and I'd hate to send it to you before it is finished. Okay, what else do you have, Ted? Hi, Waleed, when will you? Okay, we got that one. Chad, can I get? Okay, we got that one. Seth Adams, gentleman. Yes, Seth. Thank God you're fine, Mr. Troy Robinson. Seth LG Adams, Theo, will you be doing another book as well? Theo?
Probably not. The last book I wrote was almost 900 pages long. I spent like 6 years on it, and it's a lot of labor. It's a lot of work. I think I prefer just doing stuff online. I got it. It's fine. It's just but it's easier way. There's an easier way to scroll down.
Oh.
Just use your finger like this.
Oh. Okay. I'm not as technical as you.
Let's see. Do you both believe the Great Reset is being promoted on purpose by the oligarchs to get the masses to turn more populist and far right? I don't know about that. I mean, I read some things about the Great Reset. The Great Reset is about to sum it up as quickly as possible, it's really just about getting rid of shareholder capitalism and replacing it with stakeholder capitalism. So it would have more of a focus on the workers and more of a focus on really just the workers and making a better, supposedly making better working conditions and making sure that workers have more pay to protect them financially in times of crisis. It's not getting rid of capitalism, but it's just making a new form of capitalism or another form of capitalism. I do believe that the Great Reset does reflect a coming political atmosphere where people are going to want politics to focus more on rights for workers and workers getting paid more and having more of a financial security. Because of what happened with the lockdowns, entire businesses were destroyed. A lot of people got laid off. Tens of millions of people aren't able to pay their rent. So people, when they're going to go vote, they're going to look for someone who's going to present the best rhetoric on ameliorating and fixing these problems. So they're going to pick someone who's most likely going to be more populistic, and that's very, very likely. More populistic, more against the corporations, and so I think the Great Reset really does reflect that spirit.
Okay, we have Patrick. He says, "What do you say to someone when they say that Christianity supports slavery?" Well, if you think about it, everyone is a slave. What's the difference? I mean, you work for somebody, you're enslaved to that person. You get a loan from the bank, you're enslaved for the banker. So it's a usage of terms. It's a long discussion to go through the Bible and what it talks about slave. It's another discussion to itself, in which the Bible really frees the slave. It gives him many, many ways to be free, and in fact, it allows him to want to go. He can go, but sometimes the slave says, "Hey, I like my master." So let's just change the label of the word slave, employee. Everybody is a slave. In fact, the entire society is a slave. What do you think of women who advertise their bodies to sell a car? Isn't that slavery? Here's my thing about thinking about blaming God. The God of the Bible, he has slavery. There's slavery in the Bible. He punishes people, and he has all this wrath coming down on earth and all these things. So this is, you have. I talk to so many Jewish people. They say, where was God during the Holocaust? If God truly exists, or if he was there, why didn't he do anything during the Holocaust? And things of that nature they ask about. Yet, here mankind, you say, okay, so what do you want to worship? They say, they love Mother Earth. Today, everybody is into Mother Earth, nature, Mother Earth. Mother Earth did this, and Yet Mother Earth, hits mankind with hurricanes, volcanoes, and floods. Mother Earth buries Pompeii. Mother Earth sends plagues and coronavirus. Yet it doesn't seem that anybody blames Mother Earth. They worship Mother Earth, and they don't say, "Hey, we hate Mother Earth because she have poured the coronavirus on us." It's only God that they hate. So it just shows the hypocrisy of mankind. And so the issue of slavery to me is, I look at it from an allegoric perspective. We're all slaves. Even if you pay off your house, you're still a slave to the tax man. You don't pay off the taxes, and guess what? The slave master comes and throws you on the street. And so we're all enslaved. In fact, it's a much worse kind of slavery that we have today than those times. And so it's not an issue of slavery. It's how we treat one another, is how an employer treats his employee, and how an employee who watches the vineyard takes care of the vineyard, lest the master come back and see him not taking care of that vineyard. Daniel Ted, you want to say something else about the slavery?
Yeah, just to add more on the slavery issue. There's actually a verse, a couple of points I want to make about slavery in the Bible. In the book, in the Law of Hammurabi, which is the official code for the Babylonians, it says that if a slave runs away and he runs to your property, you are obligated to return the slave to the slave master, and it is illegal to give refuge to the slave. The Law of Hammurabi specifies this. Whereas in the Law of Moses, it says that if a slave runs away, you are obligated to hide him. That is a huge difference. And that is something that you will not find in any ancient text. You won't find it. You will not find any such thing where it says if a slave runs away, you are obligated to house him. You are obligated to not return him back, but to protect him. Right there, specifying the importance of workers' rights and rights for slaves. Like my dad said, there's always going to be slavery. St. Paul recognized this. He recognized that slavery was simply it's part of human existence. And so Paul didn't say, well, we have to get rid of slavery because, well, what are you going to do? You're going to get rid of slavery, and then where are these people going to go? St. Paul said, slaves, obey your masters. Masters, love your slaves. So it's a mutual relationship. It's a mutual interaction between the slave and the slave master. The slave has to obey the slave master, but the master, the boss, to use modern terminology, the boss has to love his slave. So it's mutual. Living in the Roman Empire, where the slave population was so big, I think the number of slaves in the Roman Empire surpassed the citizen population. So what Paul actually was asking for was really a complete reformation of the system. People are going to work no matter what. Back in the ancient times, they were slaves. Today, we have employees. Somebody's working for somebody. It's like these socialists who say, well, we have to get rid of poverty. We have to get rid of poverty, and we have to get rid of the rich. There should be no wealthy people, no rich people. Well, that's impossible. So it's not a question of should we get rid of the reality of people working for other people, but how should we treat workers, and how should workers interact with their bosses? And when you have that mutual relationship, then you have harmony. So that's what I would say to that.
Communist Russia, that was the essence of slavery. Communism was an essence of slavery.
Well, the thing about communism is that communism promised absolute equality. And it's like, yeah, everyone is equal to zero. So there's no such thing as a system of absolute equality. There's no such thing as a system where there are no hierarchies. Where no one is working for someone else. It's just a inevitable state of humanity.
Okay, we have Daniel. Let's see. Daniel Ariano. Who is Babylon? America or Jerusalem? Daniel, if I understand Babylon, I'll give you some clues before I send the book out. Number one, she's a mother of harlots. I just read the verse where it says, the nations drunk of her cup. All the nations that drink are also part of the harlot. And so she has daughters. She's a mother of harlots. And this is the problem, that if you have discussion with these, your regular prophecy buffs in America, they will sit there, discuss Mystery Babylon, trying to figure out which city it is. It doesn't work that way. You got to figure out the daughters. Who are the daughters of that harlot as well? And then you got to also figure out the cities. And then you got to understand Ezekiel 16. If you want, I'll give you the parable and the clue to solve it in Ezekiel 16. And in Ezekiel 16 tells us. So it's a conglomerate. Is it going to be Jerusalem? Yes, the mother. Is it going to be Rome? Yes, the daughter. Is it going to be Mecca? Yes, that too is a daughter. Now, the Catholics might be offended I said Rome, but we're talking about the fallen away. In other words, when that city falls away, it has become a harlot. Jerusalem wasn't a harlot. When it fell away, it became a harlot. In fact, Christ, when he entered Jerusalem, he says, my city have become a harlot. Now, it's interesting when you look at, I'll give you an example. Why is Arabia included? Okay. If you go to the foundation of all prophecies, and that is Balaam's riddle, Numbers 24, it tells you who destroys who and who in the end comes out living. That's another discussion I'm not going to get into, but it talks about that city. And then you go into Galatians 4. Before you study the harlot, or who is the city of the harlot, you got to go to Galatians 4. Let me pull it up here. There are Galatians 4. Which things are symbolic? For these are the two covenants. The one from Mount Sinai, which gives birth to bondage, which is Hagar. For this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia and corresponds to Jerusalem, which now is and is in bondage with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free, which is the mother of us all. Wow. There are two Jerusalems in Galatians 4. One earthly, the other is heavenly. There are two Israels, one earthly, the other heavenly. There are two Zions, one a harlot, the other virtuous. There are two lambs, one is evil, a double-horned lamb. Quote, beast that looks like a lamb with two horns but speaks like a dragon. Revelation 13:11. And another seven-horned lamb, which is holy, a lamb as though it had been slain, having seven horns. Revelation 5:6. Balaam's parable, that's Numbers 24, is regarding the beast, Assyria, and Chittim, and also the harlot city. And one from Jacob shall exercise dominion and destroy the survivors of the city. Christ destroys that city, or what's remnant in it, after he takes the saints from the city of Jerusalem. He will rescue Hebrews to come to him. and the rest will be destroyed. Unraveling the riddle, Jerusalem, which now is, that is, Corinth in Paul's time, is in bondage with her children. This type of usage should give us a clue to the beast that was and is not and yet is in Revelation 17:8. How could something be is not yet is? It is this same as in Balaam's parable. How could Israel be destroyed yet is not? That's the crux of the issue. Because in Numbers 24, the Hebrews are destroyed, they perish. Yet Israel is victorious. There is a major contradiction in the prophecy. There is no contradiction in that prophecy of Numbers 24. The Hebrews that come with Christ out of the city become the Israel of God. They are the Israel of God. The ones who remain in the city, refuse to leave Babylon, are destroyed and will perish. That's why it says, come out of her, my people, lest you perish, lest you suffer her plagues. In the same essence as in Jerusalem and Mount Sinai, which is in Arabia, read the text. There's nothing that I leave from the text. These two, whether we like it or not, play the harlot as two central headquarters that influence their world spiritually. This is the key where this needs wisdom, piecing this riddle together. For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little, Isaiah 28:10. Never solve a jigsaw with only one piece. Today, Jerusalem is the focus of the whole world. Mount Sinai is allegoric. This is not simply a literal mountain. Paul in Galatians sets a rule. A mount is a kingdom, yet such kingdom stems from Arabia. And in Isaiah 21, we find the judgment of both Arabia and the Hebrews together. Babylon is fallen, is fallen. That's not from the book of Revelation, by the way. This is from the book of Isaiah, chapter 21, verse 9. Look it up. They don't discuss that in your prophecy circles. The burden against Dumma, Isaiah 27. Where's Dumma? I know where Dumma is. I'm an Arab. Dumma Til Jandal in Saudi Arabia. The burden against Arabia, Isaiah 21:13. All the glory of Qidar will fail. I know what that is. All the glory of Islam will perish. Quote, Isaiah 21 also says, look what it says. My people, that is Israel, the Hebrews, who are crushed on the threshing floor. I tell you what I have heard from the Lord Almighty, from the God of Israel, Isaiah 21, 9-10. No interpreter can answer the Jesus-style question regarding Isaiah 21. Why is the Hebrews, my people, and Arabia judged together? Galatians 4. Galatians 4 is a prophecy. You study the Old Testament prophecies, but you forget that they are in the New Testament. And why do we find the same rendering? Babylon is fallen, two falls, as in the Apocalypse. And I quote the Apocalypse, the book of Revelation. And another angel followed saying, Babylon is fallen, two fallens. Why? Because two falls. The great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, Babylon the great is fallen, Apocalypse 18:2. And why have interpreters failed to link Balaam's parable, that is Numbers 24, regarding Eber, because it says that ships from Khittim comes from Cyprus, right around Turkey. They come and they would destroy Assyria, which is Iraq, and then they destroy Eber. Eber are the Hebrews, my gosh. But is Eber only the Hebrews? Eber had two sons, Peleg and Joktan. Joktan is the father of the Arabs. Peleg is the father of the Hebrews. So the Turks will come and they will destroy both the Hebrews who don't join the church. That, the ones who do join the church, that becomes valiant. And that's where Christ comes in. And that's where Israel is basically reborn. And then, because Eber is Joktan and Peleg, they're destroyed together. And now we understand the secret to unlock Numbers 24, whom scholars are dismayed how to solve it. Now, there's more. And we find this repetition in Isaiah 21. And in fact, both worship Jerusalem. The Arabs, I say worship in an allegoric way. The Arabs are fanatic about earthly Jerusalem. Who else is fanatic about earthly Jerusalem? The Hebrews. Who else is fanatic about earthly Jerusalem? Many evangelicals, many messianics, so many people are fascinated with this, fanatic about earthly Jerusalem. And Paul says, no, you need to be fanatic about heavenly Jerusalem. That doesn't mean that I don't defend righteous things about things that happens. It doesn't mean that I say, I support the idea that God established Israel. He had a purpose. He had a purpose bringing the Jewish people back to that land. There is a purpose, and that purpose is to redeem and to unite Jew and Gentile once and for all, which was united before in the church. So God decided to render Arabia and Jerusalem as Babylon. And this is now we get to Zechariah 5. There is two women, and he says, I go and this is going to be a house of land of Babylon in Shinar. In fact, even the Bible tells us Shinar, Babylon, the old ancient Babylon will be rebuilt too. But there is even more, much more to this Babylon. Combining Arabia with the Hebrews is also in other parts of Isaiah as well as Jeremiah. And we can even solve more of Balaam's riddle, Numbers 24, as where these ships from Khittim, from Cyprus, come from. Quote, remember, I quote prophecies that they don't quote. I focus on verses that are not popular. They focus on popular verses. I focus on both popular and unpopular verses. Why? I'll tell you why. Because when Christ came the first time, what caused Israel to miss their Messiah? Answer, they focused on the popular verses. They focused on King Messiah. They did not focus on him coming riding on a donkey. They did not focus on my old town in Bethlehem. Oh, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you're the least from the clans of Judah, yet out of you. They didn't focus. That's too lowly. That's too humble. That's too meek. They focused on the pride-filled. So when you focus on the pride-filled, that's when you fall. So we want victory. We always want victory. So we look at the prophecies. Look, Ezekiel 38, victory for Israel. And we look at Psalm 83. Oh, look, victory, 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 victory. But we don't focus on the falling away. The falling away is key. Without focusing on the falling away, and oh my gosh, do I get to the falling away in the Old Testament? It's all over the place. And let me finish this quote. Behold, a people come from the north country. I'm quoting from Jeremiah chapter 6. Who quotes Jeremiah chapter 6? When they talk about end times prophecy. Behold, a people come from the north country, and a great nation will be raised from the farthest parts of the earth. They will lay hold on bow and spear. They are cruel and have no mercy. Their voice roars like the sea, and they ride on horses as men of war set in array against you, O daughter of Zion. We have heard the report of it. Our hands grow feeble. Who's our hands? That's the prophet. He's Hebrew. Anguish has taken hold of us. Pain has as of a woman in labor. Do not go out into the field, nor walk by the way because of the sword of the enemy. Fear on every side. O daughter of my people. Pay attention. Who's writing this? Jeremiah. Dress in sackcloth and roll about in ashes. Make mourning. It's exactly as in Isaiah 21. Read Isaiah 21. You see where Isaiah is lamenting pain, anguish. My people are under the threshing floor. A great nation from the north country, from the farthest parts of the earth, coming against daughter of my people, leaves no question on how we solve all the other prophecies in Ezekiel 38, Psalm 83, Daniel, and others, where the Israel of God is victorious, yet the unbelieving Hebrews are not. And in fact, we shall go through all the prophecies to show how they too have this concept throughout, embedded in unpopular verses few focus on. The unpopular verses are just the word of God as the popular ones. They are equal in power. They are equal in everything. It is in the unpopular verses where the keys are, and it is only the popular verses where the damned consume. Jeremiah 6 fits Isaiah 21, and I quote Isaiah 21. And behold, here cometh a chariot of men with a couple of horsemen. And he answered and said, Babylon is fallen, and all the graven images of her gods he hath broken unto the ground. My people who are crushed on the threshing floor, I tell you what I have heard from the Lord Almighty, from the God of Israel. Isaiah 21, 9-10. Flee away, turn back, dwell in the depths, O inhabitants of Dedan, Arabia, for I will bring the disaster of Esau upon him at the time I punish him. And that's in Jeremiah. Babylon will never be inhabited or lived in from generation to generation, nor will the Arab pitch his tent there. There's the Jew, there's the Arab, all throughout, being destroyed together. Indeed, Jeremiah 51 gives you a major clue. You ask the question, is Jerusalem Babylon? Indeed, Babylon is to fall. There's a quote from Jeremiah 51, verse 49. Indeed, Babylon is to fall for the slain of Israel, as also for Babylon the slain of all the earth have fallen. Jeremiah 51, 49. What does that mean? All the slain of the earth, history, fall because of Babylon. Jeremiah 6 gives us clearer references, since this judgment is against daughter of my people, and plunderer will suddenly come upon us. Our hands grow feeble. Anguish has taken hold of us. Pain as of a woman in labor. This is a daughter, Zion, daughter of my people, born of Jerusalem, which includes the church, because the church is also born of Jerusalem, and it has fallen away. Isaiah clearly reveals this is what constitutes Babylon is fallen, a definite link to the apocalypse and the harlot. Then we have this. Indeed, Babylon is to fall for the slain of Israel, as also for Babylon, the slain of all the earth have fallen. Jeremiah 51:49. There is only one verse in the entire scripture that levels on the unrepented Hebrews, the slain of all the earth. Quote, that on you, Jesus' words, that on you, he was preaching in Jerusalem, may come all the righteous blood shed on the earth, from the blood of the righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the temple and the altar. Matthew 23:35. Why the Hebrew gains such judgment? For unto whomever much is given, of him shall much be required. Luke 12:48. There is no question the anguish expressed by Jeremiah is the same anguish expressed by Isaiah, since this is the punishment of his people, daughter Zion and daughter of my people. But Isaiah includes the invaders as Persians, Iran, and Jeremiah includes Minni, Ararat, Ashkenaz, the landmass of Magog between the Black and the Caspian Seas, where the ark settled at Mount Ararat, where also Armenia was recently invaded by Azerbaijan with the aid of Turkey. You're seeing it happening. You're seeing it happening, the formation and where it's going. Ararat, that's between the Caspian Sea and the Black Sea, Magog. Now we know what Numbers 24 means when the ships from Chittim sails to Assyria and then to Israel.
Hold on.
Let me finish my thought.
Hold on. No, I'm just saying. I think there's a problem here, a technical problem.
What?
Chat disconnected. Please wait. I hate this. I don't like about this thing.
Chat disconnected.
Yeah, hold on. The internet's working. Can you guys see it? Can you guys see hear us? And fine, I'm just doing a sound check here. It's just this thing went out. It's unbelievable.
How long has it been out?
I just noticed it. Waiting for live video. Like, what happened?
We have bad connection here.
We have bad connection.
Because the internet was giving me trouble today. Reboot. Then you lose all the chat.
We'll come back. I guess we have no choice.
Can you put a comment?
The camera is. Hold on.
Oh, no, there's no comment.
Nothing. Let's reset it. Yeah, it's not. It's just. No video buffering. It cut out, but you're back on again.
Oh, we're back on. Okay, don't.
Yeah, but I can't see the camera.
Don't worry about the camera. Can he see us? Patrick, can you see us? You can hear us. Oh, oy vey. He's Yiddish. Patrick,
Hold on.
no video buffering. It cut out, but you're back on again. What was the last thing you heard me say when it cut out?
I need to get a real camera. I need to reset it.
Okay.
Let's just reset it.
I'll let you reset it. I'll take a break.
Okay.
We'll take a break. We'll be right back. While he resets the system, he might have to reboot it. Okay, Ted, do your thing.
Yeah, it's off. It just went out.